Hey everybody, Josh Sigurdson, World Alternative Media here, and of course we're joined by author and economic analyst here at WAM, John Sneisen, and we've done a lot of videos in the past on the share buyback economy. It's so ridiculous. I mean, it's just a great example of the vast manipulation that we see in the markets today, and it just shows that everything is fake, everything is artificial, and the few good companies out there suffer for it because when you create a bubble, the bubble pops and then everything comes crashing down, including the good companies, and it takes a while to recover and it takes a while to innovate when such a thing is happening. And there's no secret that the markets and economy are heavily manipulated and centralized to death these days. So anyway, I wanted to go into this article from CNBC which said the stock market would be much lower if it weren't for companies buying back their own shares. Well, yeah, okay, but what's that going to lead to in the near future? I think that's a major question, but no one's asking it. Anyway, let's get into the article. As the article says, buybacks have gotten a bad rap from both Republican and Democratic lawmakers this year, but the stock market would be trading at a much lower level without them. Data compiled by Ned Davis Research shows the S&P 500 would be 19% lower without buybacks. The firm looked at the S&P 500's performance between the first quarter of 2011 and the first 3 months of 2019. Then they subtracted the amount of net monthly repurchases to arrive to that conclusion. The broad market is up more than 125% in that time, while net buybacks have totaled about $3.5 trillion. And I quote, "Without focusing too much on numbers, we can say that the S&P 500 index would probably be lower today if not for buybacks versus other uses of cash," Ed Clissold, chief U.S. strategist at Ned Davis Research, wrote in a note last month. And you can see this chart here, very interesting. As it continues, it says, lawmakers on both sides are bashing buybacks and want to make it harder for companies to repurchase their own stock. They argue that buybacks inflate corporate executives' pay and share price at the expense of the company's workers. In a February 20th Medium post, Senator Charles Schumer, a Democrat from New York, said companies should reinvest their capital differently. Earlier in February, Schumer and Senator Bernie Sanders of Vermont, presidential hopeful, proposed in a New York Times op-ed that companies should provide living wages and health benefits to workers if a buyback program is launched. Okay, yeah, sure, they should do such a thing in the case of a free market where government isn't completely robbing them of every penny they have, destroying market innovation and competition, destroying productivity, and causing huge problems for tax burdens on people, plus inflation, plus the monopolization of corporations via the hand of vastly regulating corporations and taxing corporations, which push small businesses out of the market and prop up the major corporations. Again, it's a problem, reaction, solution, repeat mentality of these politicians, of these lawmakers, of these organized crime henchmen, and it's just so ridiculous because, yeah, we have a problem with share buybacks, without a doubt, but would we see these corporations get away with such a thing if individual demand really had a say in things and it wasn't so monopolized by the hand of, like I said, these regulations and these taxes? Would it be so manipulated if it weren't for the fact that everything is centralized and it's expected to be, and it's the only way these companies tend to be able to compete is by the hand of centralization and complete manipulation of the markets, because that's what the government does and that's what the major corporations do and that's what the banks do, and it's a never-ending cycle. So as it continues here, it says, and I quote, "At a time of huge income and wealth inequality, Americans should be outraged that these profitable corporations are laying off workers while spending billions of dollars to boost their stock's value to further enrich the wealthy few," the senators wrote in an op-ed. Senator Marco Rubio, a Republican from Florida, said in a series of tweets, "The U.S. does not have a free market," noting, "We have tax code which engineers economy in favor of inflating prices of shares at the expense of future productivity and job creation." I'll agree with Marco Rubio for once in my life here, but I must mention that this wealth inequality that they're talking about and this problem with minimum wages and all this stems from inflation, stems from the vast printing of currency, centralization of the economy, and destruction of the US dollar via fiat, by law, by legal tender, at the printing, fractional reserve lending, and then the debt that everyone is forced to pay off. Well, they only pay off the interest on the debt, as we know. Anyway, it's ridiculous. John, you've done a lot of research over the last several years, especially on the share buybacks and how destructive this whole thing is. And then, of course, you got these lawmakers saying that they want to manipulate things more in their favor or whatever. I mean, it's like putting a Band-Aid on a gushing wound and expecting everything to be okay. Anyway, what do you think, John?
Well, I think the share buybacks has been such a drastic and massive part of the actual growth in the S&P 500 that it's substantial. I actually, while you were going through your article there, Josh, I took the chart that you see on the page there showing all the share buybacks and the S&P 500, the value of it. Now, what I did is I added those approximately up. It's not a completely right number what I came up with, but very close. You're looking at $4 trillion in share buybacks since March 2011. That is insane when you take a look at the actual market cap. The current, well, as of April 30th that I have here, the market cap was about 23.7 trillion. Well, what does that calculate to? It calculates to almost 20% of the total market cap of the S&P 500 is share buybacks that happen. Isn't that the most interesting fact to look at? How big and substantial amount that has been of this whole thing, and not to mention where did all the capital come from to do all the share buybacks? Well, a lot of them used mass amounts of debt because it's so dirt cheap. The money, the currency right now from these central bankers that are push prices down so they could prop up the stock market and the real estate market where people feel wealthier. If they pump that into the economy, we've all been suffering through massive inflation. But they pumped it into two places where, well, people are struggling, can't pay their houses. You have 75% of the income of people in Toronto goes to housing costs. Yeah, that's very sustainable over there. You central bank morons. And bankers, giving out the loans to everybody, pumping up the markets into a ridiculous bubble. And this is what we're seeing all across the world. It's all this cheap debt that have been slushing around and most of it's soaked up into the stock markets around the world and into the real estate markets. And now,
John, what do you think this is going to lead to in the near future? Because this cannot sustain itself much longer. It's amazing it sustained itself as long as it has.
No, it can't sustain itself for very much longer. Like, we're way past the 7-year cycle, which is a regular debt business cycle. In the economy, where people have gotten too much debt because the central banks lowered interest rates. Well, they lowered them, they never actually raised them really up again. Too much. So that's been the problem. So they completely manipulated the 7-year cycle by printing mass amounts of money. I looked at the M3 in Canada, it was 70%. And not to mention the other problem that's not just the share buybacks and everything, but all the debt. There was there was a research done. Max Kaiser was talking about this. I can't look it up right now, but he said 15% of corporations in the United States are zombie corporations. And that with the zombie corporation, it means that they only pay the interest on their debt. And if you, me, Josh, did that, we would be not very long until the bank is like, hey, we want our money because we don't think you're ever going to pay back your loan that you borrowed from us.
Well, hey, John, that's what the government does. They're just following along.
Yeah, see, oh, wow. So both the United States government, the Canadian government, well, actually every government around the world is not paying anything else than interest. They're not paying the principal down ever. Well, you might see the oddball government to do something that's sustainable, but
it's fraudulent to begin with. Like, the very notion is fraudulent from the very get-go. The vast printing of currency, and then this vast amount of debt coming from the fractional reserve lending and the printing. This is all fraudulent to begin with, and then on top of that, the currency that they print ends up the price of living inflates because of it, and people are stuck using that currency, and they could go to jail or get taxed or stolen from if they use anything else as capital gains. And then what happens next? Well, people are stuck paying off the interest on the debt on this thing that causes this so-called wealth inequality that all these people keep complaining about but keep perpetuating even further.
Yeah, well, look at what I just saw an article coming out from E24, a Norwegian news agency for business. They were talking about how DNB, the Norwegian bank, actually made a massive loss when they sold one of their investment corporations. And of course, well, when they make a massive loss, that means that they're writing off all these taxes that they had to pay. And of course, like everybody's talking about, oh, Trump, always lost money. Yeah, it's because of fucking smart. Sorry for the word. I know we gotta bleep that out, Josh. But this is all because of these morons. That believe that the system is perfectly fine. Look at, like, he was just playing the system. He was losing money on a grand scale. Meanwhile, he didn't lose money. He was out golfing. He had a good time. But that's the thing. It's everybody, like, the system is built for the upper elite. We're not talking about the people that everybody's coming after. We're talking about the 0.01% that are
like Warren Buffett, who virtue signals all day about how charitable he is when he's only donating to charities in order to hide some of his money so he doesn't get extorted, while talking or claiming that everyone should be extorted. Like, he's constantly pushing the notion that we need to see further extortion of the masses, aka taxation, all that kind of stuff. Meanwhile, he is trying to evade it in the best way possible by making it look great for himself by donating to charities. I mean, it's so sick how deep these people go down that rabbit hole of claiming that they come in peace, but really they are just, they're like the rest of the criminals.
Well, yeah, you got Heinz Ketchup has done share buybacks as well. One of the major corporations that he owns, like Kraft and Heinz, of course. All of these corporations are doing it because they need to prop up their share price because they know that the Ponzi scheme is coming apart. That's what it is. It's a freaking Ponzi scheme that they built on such an epic scale that we never, like, Bernie Madoff, he's like, if you were to compare them to sizes, it was like Bernie Madoff would be a pea and the current Ponzi scheme is like a watermelon. That's how
that's the power of the media, though, John. That's the power of propaganda. They make Bernie Madoff look like the worst person of the century, while all these people are giggling behind closed doors about how they just got away with Bernie Madoff times 500. I mean, it's crazy. And then they make a point of one person, and then they pump it through the media, tell everyone to repeat after me, and then people end up repeating after them. But John, we're trying to make our videos shorter lately, so can you go into, like, can you tell people what the bottom line is going forward here with the share buyback situation? It's just so crazy.
Well, the bottom line is just, I don't even know, Josh, what to say anymore. Like, we've done so many videos on all these different topics, and it's just getting more and more frustrating. I would just say the bottom line here is to start educating yourself what's happening out there, and not be like, oh yeah, the share market is up so much, let's pile in right now. Meanwhile, we're at the top where everybody, of course, you talked about the mainstream media, the mainstream financial media, pumping stocks, pumping ETFs, whatever. Their corporate overlord banksters wants to sell to the sheeps, of course.
Larry Fink.
Yeah, and yeah. Of course, that comes to mind. A lot of these guys that are out there, talking great about the economy and everything. Meanwhile, the data that's coming out is telling us it's the complete opposite. So I would say, really be with caution right now when you look at your investments and see. Maybe take a second look at where you're at with them and take a look at, is there a way I could be way better diversified? Not diversified in stocks, as financial advisors said, being a well-diversified portfolio of stocks. It's like, yeah, that's one. That's not well-diversified. You're in one asset. It's completely stupid. So, yeah, that's kind of the thing that I wanted to end with is, like, take a look at your portfolio and make sure that you are well-diversified. You have real estate, land, gold and silver, have crypto, have investments that make sense. Maybe you can have some stocks, right? Or like that are privately owned and off the
Cash
public
flow.
markets. Yeah, it's so important to just have any assets, like have a business, have whatever you can. Like food,
Ensure
water,
your
all
wealth.
this. Yeah, just be well diversified in these times, because if you're piled into one asset, into Either if it is, of course, I didn't even mention bonds, because who wants to invest in debt? But yeah, that's another terrible thing. That's probably even worse than
Yield
the
curve
stock market.
inversion.
Yeah, the yield curve is inverted. Where does it make sense that you actually can borrow for less? If you borrow longer than on the short term. So yeah, it's just the markets are completely delusional, and of course the stock market is not the market. The economy. That's people. Wake up here, but again, take a look at where you're at, and seriously look at how diversified you are.
Yeah,
that's
or
our opinion.
we could just not listen to anything John says and listen to these academics like Paul Krugman that says break some windows and you'll stimulate the economy. And people call us crazy. Anyway, the point is we should be ensuring our wealth. We should be responsible and free and decentralized as possible. And anyway, we're going to close it off. But I do want to mention as we close it off that we are being heavily manipulated and heavily shadow banned here on YouTube, as we're basically not reaching more than we're reaching the same amount of people basically that we reached when we had about 5% of the subscribers, and we're watching about 1,000 subscribers get taken off our account every week, and the more views we get a day, the more unsubscriptions we get, and it seems like there's some kind of algorithm set up so that every time we get a certain amount of views, they cut out a bunch of subscribers, because I've gotten 700 messages in the past 2 weeks from viewers claiming they've been randomly unsubscribed from our channel, and it's getting really bad. YouTube says it's not happening and they're all spam bots. Yeah, I don't think a bunch of spam bots are uniquely all messaging me and saying, hey, YouTube keeps randomly unsubscribing me from your channel constantly.
It's Krugman.
And no one's being notified.
Krugman spam bots, Josh. It's Krugman.
It's crazy, though. It's getting to the point where it's unsustainable. I don't know how we're going to do this anymore. We're always going to try, and we'll do whatever we can. But it's become like I just got banned from Facebook because a guy threatened to behead me, and I responded that he should get some help, dude. And I got banned for bullying and harassment. Well,
the world we live in, Josh.
Yeah, so I can't even post on Facebook. Anyway, the old guard is dying, but for the time being, it's important that we utilize it to our best advantage to bring our information to the next level. So it's getting really bad, folks. So anything you guys can do to help us means a lot. We have a Subscribe Star page, which is linked below. And the Subscribe Star page, we will be doing not safe for YouTube content, essentially, subscriber-only content, about $4.99 US a month or more. You will be able to get or access this content. And then on top of that, we've got GoFundMe, Patreon, the usual, Bitcoin, all linked below. And in the outro video of this, you'll see later if you stay tuned for it. And of course, we also have events coming up. So we have the Red Pill Expo 2019, hosted by G. Edward Griffin, with people like Robert Kiyosaki, Jeff Berwick, Cynthia McKinney, Del Bigtree, Zach Bush, Richard Gage. So many people are going to be speaking there. It's going to be amazing. I can't wait. And of course, that's June 7th to 9th, 2019. So it's coming up real soon in Hartford, Connecticut. So make sure to get your tickets for that linked below. There's the affiliate link below. It helps both of us out in this case. And then on top of that, we have on July 20th to 21st, we got Anarcho Vegas, which of course is going to be a lot of fun. G. Edward Griffin, Jeff Berwick again. And then we have all these other incredible speakers like Bo of the Fifth Column. We got a whole crypto panel set up. We've got a ton of people. Check the website. We got a lot of speakers. Sterling Lujan. It'll go on forever, so I'm not going to go into all of them. But nonetheless, it's a really great event that's going to be coming up, and I can't wait to see everyone. It's at the tail end of Freedom Fest, and we'll also have a benefit for Ross Ulbricht, as Lynn Ulbricht, his mother, will be there as well. And on top of that, we got the Winnipeg Crypto Conference in October, which everyone should check out. If you're in Canada, make sure to come out to that. If you're in the United States, make sure to come out to that as well, of course. But David Morgan, one of our favorite guests, will be speaking there, among many other people. Rodrigo Ambrisi, Vit Jedlicka, the president of Liberland. Interesting cast of characters for sure. So check the link for that below as well. And I almost forgot, use promo code WAM, WAM, at anarchovegas.com as well, if you want to get 10% off. And
same with the Winnipeg Crypto Conference as well.
Exactly. Yeah. So you guys can save money. We can benefit. It's good for all of us, and we get all this information. We get together. We're able to network. We get to meet these incredible people, and it's influential. It's inspirational. It's educational, and everyone has something that they haven't yet learned. No one knows everything. So the more we learn, the better we are prepared for the outcome of the this coming collision course that we are on, and if we keep ourselves safe and our families safe, we'll be very happy on the other end of it. So anyway, thanks for going into this with us, John. Everyone, check those links below in the description and pinned to the top of the comments. Share our video around, press like, do whatever you can, because we are being killed here on YouTube, completely stifled and shadow banned. So anyway, thanks for going into this with us, John. And until next time, this is Josh Sigurdson and John Sneisen signing out from World Alternative Media. Find the truth, be the change. Like what you see here, OM, don't forget to check the links below. GoFundMe, Patreon. We can't do it without you. Any donation is very much appreciated, especially as we are so heavily demonetized and censored by YouTube as these guys come in and flag all of our content as hate speech. The shadow banning is getting really bad, guys. Also, check our Bitcoin address right here on the screen or in the description below. We really appreciate it. And of course, check us out at the Red Pill Expo 2019. Of course, the great G. Edward Griffin and so many other incredible speakers will be there. Our link for that is below as well. And we cannot forget Mike Maloney's goldsilver.com, which you can also find in the description. One of the greatest market and monetary historians out there. We really encourage everyone to check that out. But until next time, this is Josh Sigurdson signing out from World Alternative Media. Find the truth, be the change.
I'm sure you have already changed people's minds in your young age because you're involved, and I like that.